In October of 1944, Hitler summoned his favorite commando leader, SS Obersturmbannführer Otto Skorzeny, to the Wolf's Lair. Hitler outlined a bold flank to the coming Ardennes offensive, seize intact bridges over the Meuse River before the Americans could blow them up. To do that, he wanted a new formation, the Panzerbrigade 150, that would advance in captured Allied vehicles while its men posed as US troops sowing chaos in the American rear. Skorzeny had barely 6 weeks to conjure 3,000 men, scores of Shermans and Jeeps, and mountains of US kit. He received barely 2/3 of the manpower and a single Sherman tank. But an urgent call for volunteers with knowledge of the English language and American dialect echoed across the Western Front. During his post-war interrogation in August of 1945, Skorzeny stated, "Only 10 men, mostly sailors, spoke fluent English and had a grasp of American slang. Another group, known as Category 2, also consisted largely of sailors. These 40 men spoke flawless English but lacked familiarity with American slang. Category 3 included between 100 and 120 individuals who spoke English reasonably well, and Category 4, roughly 200 strong, was composed of men who had learned some English in school. The rest, noted Skorzeny, could barely manage to say yes." So Skorzeny handpicked the 150 best linguists, baptizing the new detachment Einheit Stielau after a village near the training ground. Crash courses followed: demolitions, radio use, US drill, even chewing gum and slouching like a GI. Some recruits refreshed their slang by chatting with American POWs in nearby camps. As of mid-November 1944, the brigade was still short 1,000 American helmets. The uniforms were an improvised mix, mostly summer clothing, often marked with prisoner of war symbols. The men needed to train as a cohesive unit. To that end, they were isolated in the Truppenübungsplatz Grafenwöhr, or the Grafenwöhr training area in Bavaria, cut off from the outside world and denied any contact with their families. The goal was to transform these recruits into convincing American GIs. The training included not just military drills, but cultural assimilation, chewing gum, swearing, loitering, and casual strolling, behaviors typical of American soldiers. The rigid German military demeanor, especially the automatic heel-clicking response to orders, had to be completely unlearned. Einheit Stielau deployed in 3 to 4-man jeep teams wearing genuine US uniforms and armed with Thompsons and plastic explosives. Their orders fell into 2 main categories. Number 1, demolition. They had to blow bridges, ammo dumps, and fuel parks. And number 2, recon and deception. They had to swap road signs and issue bogus traffic directions, cut telephone wires, and pass false orders. Love diving deeper into military history? This video is supported by my YouTube members who get exclusive videos weekly, not available anywhere else for their kind support. You can join their ranks easily. Just hit the join button now to get the exclusive videos and much more. Thank you for supporting me. I couldn't be doing it without your help. If you want to know more about Germany's panzer tactics, check out my ebook in the description. When the Ardennes offensive erupted before dawn on the 16th of December 1944, Einheit Stielau patrols slipped through gaps opened by the 1st and 12th SS Panzer divisions. Skorzenyi had dispatched his jeep teams in advance to sow confusion among the Allied forces. On the morning of the 17th of December, one team altered road signs, leading the 16th Regiment of the US 1st Infantry Division to take a significantly longer route. Another team infiltrated Malmedy, going so far as to share a drink with an unsuspecting American GI in a cafe. They reported that only service units remained in the town and that these units were preparing to withdraw. Another group created such suspicion among American soldiers on the road that the Americans chose to turn back. Another team successfully cut the telephone lines between General Hodges and General Bradley's headquarters. However, the commando units soon began to attract attention. Unlike typical American jeeps, which carried only 2 occupants, Skorzenyi's teams traveled with 3 to 4 men, raising suspicion. Once the Americans realized that German commandos were operating behind their lines, they grew increasingly cautious. The German infiltrators also made avoidable mistakes. One team asked for patrol at a fuel depot instead of using the American term gasoline, an error that led to their immediate capture. A few days later, on the 23rd of December, 15 of Skorzenyi's men were executed, including Günther Billing, Manfred Pernas, and Wilhelm Schmidt. Their jeep had been stopped days earlier, and when they failed to give the correct password, they confessed to being German operatives embedded behind enemy lines. The panic they incited outpaced their actual impact. Numerous acts of sabotage were wrongly attributed to Skorzenyi's small unit. At one point, Radio Calais reported that more than 200 saboteurs in American uniforms had been arrested. Skorzenyi reportedly laughed, realizing that the Americans had mistakenly detained their own men. Altogether, 44 German soldiers wearing US uniforms were sent through US lines, and all but 8 returned to the German lines. With the breakthrough stalled, Skorzenyi asked to use his brigade conventionally and led an ill-fated attack on Malmedy on the 21st of December. 2 weeks later, the Battle of the Bulge was lost. In May of 1945, he surrendered and spent 2 years awaiting trial at Dachau. The prosecution argued that wearing American uniforms was a war crime. The defense countered that Skorzenyi had ordered the garments removed before combat. Testimony from British SOE agent Forrestio Thomas, who wore German uniforms behind enemy lines while working for the SOE, tipped the balance. Skorzenyi was acquitted in August of 1947, establishing a precedent. Disguise is not illegal unless combat is undertaken while disguised. The Einheit Stielau never reached the Meuse River, but its psychological impact far outstripped its numbers. The operation forced Allied staffs to confront the vulnerabilities of their own procedures and left an enduring legal footprint on the interpretation of the Hague and Geneva Conventions. For Skorzenyi, it cemented a myth that carried him through past-war adventures in Spain, Egypt, and, ironically, clandestine work for Israel's Mossad before his death in 1975. The Ardennes deception thus stands as a reminder that in war, questions whispered at a roadblock or a sign twisted 180 degrees can matter as much as tanks and guns, especially when the enemy speaks with your own accent. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to support my channel, check out the PayPal donation link in the description or consider becoming a member. To make sure you don't miss my future work, subscribe to my channel please and press the bell notification button. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.